I could tell it was going to be another one of those nights before I even stepped through the bedroom door. The way Emily stood at the sink, her back stiff as she brushed her teeth, said everything. She wore that old, oversized sleep shirt with holes at the seams, the same one she always wore when she wanted to remind me, without saying it, that there was zero chance she'd be naked tonight. Or any night, lately. She didn't look up when I entered, just kept brushing, eyes fixed on her reflection, deliberate strokes, jaw tight. I'd memorized that rhythm by now. The quiet rejection always came after it. I sat on the edge of the bed and unlaced my boots slowly, hoping, ridiculously, that tonight would be different. That maybe she'd look over her shoulder and smile like she used to. Maybe she'd toss a teasing comment my way like she used to when we were new. Back when my name in her mouth sounded like a secret she liked keeping. She didn't. "Hey," I said, my voice low. She spit, rinsed, wiped her mouth with a towel. "Hey," she answered flat. Barely even a glance. I rubbed my hands together, trying to conjure something. Heat. Courage. I didn't even know what I was hoping for. All I knew was the silence between us felt heavier than the mattress. "You heading to bed?" I asked. She nodded. "I'm exhausted." That was the cue. It always was. "Long day?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Emily climbed into bed without replying. She pulled the covers up to her chin like armor and let out a sigh that somehow managed to carry both pity and distance. I leaned back against the headboard, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above us. "We haven't, in a while," I said finally. There it was, out in the open. Emily didn't move. "I'm just tired, Jake," she said. "Work's been insane, and you know that." I turned to look at her. "It's not just tonight. It's been weeks." She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her phone on the nightstand and started scrolling. The light lit her face, but not in a soft or flattering way. It was cold and blue and distant, and I could feel my chest tighten as I watched her eyes flit across something infinitely more interesting than me. "I'm not trying to push you," I said. "It's just, I miss you. Not just sex, but you." Her thumb paused mid-scroll. "Jake, can we not do this tonight? Please?" I swallowed hard and stood. I felt stupid. Small. Like I'd just exposed myself and been met with a shrug. "I'll take a drive," I muttered, grabbing my keys from the dresser. She didn't protest. Didn't ask where I was going or when I'd be back. Just one more silence between us. One more little death. I walked out of the bedroom, my boots heavy on the hardwood floor. I made it to the front door before I heard movement behind me. I turned, expecting Emily, maybe a change of heart, maybe a whisper of apology. But it wasn't her. It was Lena, Emily's younger sister. She'd been visiting for the week, crashing in the guest room after her breakup with some tech guy from Portland. She was standing at the hallway's edge, barefoot, wearing one of Emily's old t-shirts that hit just above the knee. Her dark hair was loose, slightly mussed, and her eyes were unreadable. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, not trusting myself to say anything yet. "Can't sleep?" she added. I shook my head. "Nah, just driving. Needed air." She leaned against the wall, arms crossed loosely under her chest. "Jake." Her voice was gentler than Emily's had been in months. It cracked something open in me. What if I said, "Right now"? It took a second to register. My brain scrambled to make sense of it, wondering if I misheard. My breath caught in my throat. "What?" I said, blinking. She tilted her head slightly, lips twitching. Not a smile. Not quite. Her voice dropped to something near a whisper. I said, "What if I told you I wouldn't say not tonight?" The floor seemed to shift under me. I laughed, nervously, trying to brush it off. "You're joking." But something in her eyes said she wasn't. She stepped forward once, then stopped. Just enough to close the space so I could see her pupils dilate slightly in the hallway's low light. There was a flash of something in her expression. Hunger, sadness, maybe both. "I'm just saying," she murmured. "Not everyone forgets what they have in front of them." I looked away, breath shallow. My heart was hammering so loudly in my chest, I was sure she could hear it. This was crazy. This was wrong. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than numb. "I should go," I said quickly, gripping the doorknob like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Lena nodded. "Okay." She didn't say anything else, didn't press. Just turned and walked back toward the guest room, her bare feet soft against the hardwood, her silhouette disappearing like smoke. I stood there in the open doorway for a full minute, breathing like I'd just run 5 miles. Then I stepped outside into the night, not sure whether I was trying to escape something or being pulled towards something new. The night air hit me like a slap, cool, crisp, and bracing, a reminder that the world outside our crumbling marriage still existed. I slid into the driver's seat and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, unsure of where to go or what I was even running from. From the living room window, the curtains barely stirred, but I knew Emily wasn't watching. She never did anymore. I half expected Lena to peek through, her silhouette flickering behind the fabric like a ghost. But she didn't. No one did. I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway slowly, unsure whether I was chasing peace or just running from another night of rejection. 2 blocks down, the quiet hum of the tires was broken by the sound of the passenger door swinging open. "What the hell?" I said, slamming the brake. It was Lena. She slid in beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world, legs bare, a hoodie now pulled over her borrowed t-shirt. Her eyes were calm, unreadable, and something in her expression made the air in the car feel electric. "Are you insane?" I asked, more surprised than angry. She pulled the door shut. "I figured you could use some company." I stared at her. "Lena, you can't just." "Relax," she said softly. I left a note on the kitchen table. "Emily won't even know I'm gone. She's probably already asleep or deep in some TikTok spiral." I leaned back, still gripping the wheel. "This is a bad idea." She tilted her head, looking out the window. "You keep saying that like you expect me to argue. I'm not trying to seduce you, Jake. I just didn't want you to be alone tonight." The tension in my chest eased a little, but not entirely. Because seduction wasn't the only thing that scared me. I turned back onto the road and let the silence settle between us. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was thick, weighted, like the quiet between 2 people who already knew there was more under the surface than either wanted to admit. "You used to smile more," she said after a while. I glanced at her. "Excuse me." "You used to have this laugh," she said, a small, fond smirk on her lips. "When I'd visit during college breaks, you'd be the one making everyone laugh. You and Em had that dumb inside joke about grocery store music, and you'd both hum elevator tunes like idiots in the car. I thought you two were magic." My hands tightened on the wheel. "That was a long time ago." She looked at me, really looked. "So what happened?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled into a vacant parking lot beside a park trail I used to jog, back when I still believed I could outrun problems. I turned the engine off. She just stopped wanting me. Slowly, bit by bit. The touches stopped, then the kisses, then the sex, and I kept pretending it was just a phase. Lena was quiet, not judging, just listening. "It's not even the lack of sex that kills me," I added. "It's how easy it became for her to not even notice I was still trying." She nodded slowly. "She doesn't see you anymore." I blinked. The words hit harder than I expected. "Yeah." She leaned forward slightly, her hair falling over her shoulder. "It's not your fault, you know." "I'm not so sure," I said. "Maybe I got boring. Maybe I didn't try hard enough." "That's bullshit," Lena said, sharp for the first time. "You made dinner last night. You fixed the sink last week. You work all day, and you still fold the laundry. That's not boring, Jake. That's showing up. And she stopped showing up a long time ago." Her words hung between us, brittle and raw. I didn't know what to say, so I just stared through the windshield, watching a moth flutter under the streetlight. "She doesn't touch you anymore, does she?" Lena asked. I hesitated. "No." "When was the last time she looked at you like she wanted you?" I exhaled slowly. "Over a year ago." Lena's gaze dropped to her lap. She fiddled with the sleeve of her hoodie, voice softer now. "I remember. I had the biggest crush on you when I was 19. I turned to her, startled. She smiled, eyes down. "You probably had no clue, but I thought you were the sexiest man I'd ever met. I used to sit at the dinner table and imagine you brushing my hand by accident and how my skin would buzz for an hour afterward." My pulse quickened. "You're kidding." She looked up at me, no smile now. "Do I look like I'm kidding?" I didn't know what to do with that. We sat in silence for a long time after that. The kind that feels like a lit fuse waiting for someone to breathe the wrong way. "You know I can't," I started. "I know," she interrupted. "I'm not trying to ruin anything. I wanted you to know. You're still seen, Jake." I turned toward her fully now, searching her face for a sign that this was just a game. But her eyes held nothing but quiet honesty, and something deeper I didn't want to name. She reached out, just for a second, and laid her hand over mine. It was innocent, chaste, but it sparked heat that shot straight up my arm. She pulled away a moment later and leaned back in her seat. "Take me home," she whispered. And I did. We didn't speak the rest of the way, but the car was thick with tension, the kind that wasn't going to disappear with morning light. I didn't sleep when I got home. Emily was already snoring gently on her side of the bed, her body cocooned in blankets like a fortress I no longer had a key to. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching her. Not in some creepy way, just trying to remember what it used to feel like to want to crawl into that bed with her and believe I'd be welcome there. She hadn't even stirred when I came back in. "No, Sleepy, where were you?" No light left on for me. Just silence and distance. The kind that settles into a house like mildew when no one does the work of love anymore. I went downstairs, poured myself a whiskey I didn't want, and stood at the kitchen sink staring out at the moonlit yard. The air was still, so quiet it made the loneliness in my chest echo louder. Then there were soft footsteps behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know it was Lena. The sound of her walking was already burned into my memory. Bare feet, careful but confident. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. I shook my head and glanced back at her. She was wearing sweatpants now, her hoodie zipped halfway up, hair tied in a messy knot that somehow made her look even softer. "I thought maybe I scared you off earlier," she added. I smirked. "A little. Not gonna lie." She laughed, and it was low and warm. "I wasn't trying to. I guess I just say what's on my mind too much." "No," I said. "It's refreshing. Most people don't say much of anything." Lena stepped up beside me at the sink, eyes on the same yard I'd been staring at for the past 10 minutes. "Want to get out of here?" I blinked. "Right now?" She nodded. "Yeah, let's just drive." I hesitated, then nodded. "Give me a second." We didn't speak as I grabbed my keys again and slipped into sneakers. Emily didn't budge upstairs. The whole house seemed like a museum of our past, a still life of two people slowly forgetting how to be together. In the car, Lena pulled her legs up onto the passenger seat and folded her arms across her chest like she was bracing for something. Or maybe protecting something. Her knees pointed slightly toward me. I pulled out of the driveway and headed toward the outskirts of town, the place where the road gets dark and straight and endless. "Want music?" I asked. She shook her head. "Just drive." So I did. The hum of the engine filled the silence. Streetlights thinned out behind us. The road opened wide. After a while, Lena spoke. "I used to envy Emily." I glanced at her. "Really?" "Yeah," she said, her voice a whisper over the wind. She had this guy who cooked, who actually listened, who looked at her like she mattered. Most women don't get that. I didn't know what to say to that. "She started pulling away years ago," Lena continued. I could see it. Family dinners, holidays, she'd tune you out. You'd talk about work or some random thing, and she'd just scroll her phone. I hated it. "Maybe she just fell out of love," I said. "Maybe she forgot how to love," Lena replied. "There's a difference." I turned down a quiet stretch of road that cut past the reservoir. The water glinted in the moonlight like a sheet of polished steel. Lena let out a breath and leaned her head against the window. "You ever feel like you're screaming into a void?" I asked. "Like you're doing everything you're supposed to. Being loyal, being present, but none of it matters?" "All the time," she whispered. "With my ex. I kept trying to be enough. But some people just can't see you. Doesn't matter how loud you are." "Yeah," I said, my throat tight. "Exactly that." The quiet between us changed. It wasn't empty now. It was full of things we hadn't said yet, things we were too afraid to name. There was a gravity in the car, like we were orbiting something dangerous but magnetic. Lena shifted, tucking one leg beneath her. "Do you think Emily knows how lucky she is?" "No," I said before I could think. "She used to. But now, I think I'm just background noise." Lena turned toward me. I felt her eyes on the side of my face, felt her gaze like fingers brushing my skin. "She's an idiot," she said quietly. I glanced at her. "Don't say that." "I will," Lena said, fiercer now. "Because she had something real, Jake. And she let it fade without even trying." Her voice cracked a little at the end, and for the first time, I saw the truth behind her words. This wasn't just about Emily. This was about her, too. About being unseen, unwanted. I pulled the car over near the overlook above the reservoir and killed the engine. The silence afterward was almost holy. We sat there in the dark, the only light coming from the moon and the dashboard glow. Lena reached out suddenly and touched my hand. Just lightly. Just enough to make my skin tingle. I'm not trying to make things complicated, she said. I needed you to know that someone sees you. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles, soft and slow, and I felt my chest open in a way it hadn't in years. Not since Emily had last looked at me like I was more than just a piece of furniture in our house. But I didn't grab Lena's hand. I didn't lean in. I just let the moment sit there, warm and dangerous. And when I finally started the engine again, neither of us said a word the whole way home. But everything between us had changed. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table pretending to read the news on my phone. The screen glowed in front of me, but I wasn't seeing anything, just using it as a shield. Emily breezed in, freshly showered, coffee in hand, dressed in her go-to blazer and heels. She smelled like citrus and expensive perfume, not like sleep or skin or mornings shared in bed. Just clean, calculated, unreachable. "Morning," she said, without looking at me. "Hey," I murmured, eyes still on the screen. She moved like we were strangers who happened to rent the same house. The way she opened the fridge, grabbed a pre-cut container of fruit, checked her phone, sipped her coffee. Not a single glance. Not a single flicker of interest. "You working late tonight?" I asked after a beat. "Probably," she replied, halfway out of the kitchen. "We've got that client review coming up." She paused just long enough to add, "Don't wait up." Then she was gone. No kiss. No touch. Not even a smile. Just the click of her heels down the hall, the front door opening and closing behind her, and the muffled hum of her car pulling away. I sat there, staring at the now-still house. Quiet again. Empty, except Lena's voice floated in from behind me. "She didn't even ask if you wanted coffee?" I turned. She was leaning against the archway in one of Emily's old, oversized flannels, her bare legs disappearing beneath the hem. "She hasn't made me coffee in over a year," I muttered. "She didn't say good morning. She didn't ask about your plans. It's like you're the ghost in this house." I shrugged. "Yeah, I know." Lena padded over barefoot, grabbing the kettle and setting it on the stove. "It's weird, isn't it?" she said. "How people get so good at pretending nothing's wrong. How we go through the motions until they don't even feel like lies anymore." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, we built a life out of pretending." She made coffee for both of us, handed me a mug, and sat across from me, one leg tucked under her thigh. I couldn't help but notice how comfortable she looked here, how visible she made me feel. "She used to love cooking with me," I said after a while. "We'd dance in the kitchen, laugh at dumb jokes. She used to sneak up behind me and hug me from behind just because." "And now?" Lena asked gently. "Now I cook alone," I said, bitterness just beneath the surface. I put plates in front of her, and she scrolls Instagram while she eats. Lena sipped her coffee. "Do you still love her?" The question hit harder than I expected. "I don't know," I said. "I think I love who she was, who we were. But now, I think I'm just afraid to admit it's over." Lena nodded, her gaze falling to the rim of her cup. "I used to do that. Stay too long. Cling to what I thought something could be, instead of accepting what it actually was." There was something in her voice, pain softened by time, but still present. "She never used to treat you like this," she added. "I saw it when I'd visit. You were the one who lit up the room. You'd be chopping vegetables, and she'd sneak kisses between slices. You used to touch her like she was made of fire, and she used to burn for you." I swallowed hard, the weight of memory heavy in my chest. "And now?" I asked. Lena met my eyes. "Now you touch the air like you're still reaching for her. But she's not reaching back." That truth burned. That afternoon, Lena cleaned the guest room, though she didn't need to, and folded laundry that wasn't hers. She brought in groceries, fixed a leaky faucet. Little things Emily hadn't even noticed had broken. Little things Emily used to praise me for doing. It was strange, watching someone else care in a house that had gone cold. Like color seeping back into a black and white photo. That night, I sat on the couch flipping channels while Emily sat across from me, laptop open, work emails flying. Lena curled up on the armchair with a book, legs folded underneath her, soft music playing from her phone like a quiet hum beneath the surface of our silence. Emily didn't say much. She closed her laptop once, muttered something about deadlines, and disappeared upstairs without saying goodnight. Lena glanced at me, eyes flickering. "Want a glass of wine?" I nodded. She came back with two, handed me one, and curled up again, this time on the same couch, one cushion away. The distance wasn't wide. but it held everything. You notice how she didn't ask how your day was? Lena said after a while. I stopped expecting her to, I said. She sipped her wine, slow and deliberate. You deserve more, Jake. I looked over. Do I? Her eyes locked on mine. Yeah, you do. The silence after that was heavy, not with awkwardness, but possibility. There was warmth in the room again, not from the wine, not from the low music, but from sitting next to someone who saw me again. And somehow, that was more intimate than any kiss. It started as a joke, just two people drinking wine on a quiet Thursday night, trading memories like old coins, flipping them over and over to see what still had value. Lena brought the second bottle from the kitchen. Emily was upstairs, likely asleep, or buried in work emails she never talked about. The house was silent except for the soft clink of glasses and the occasional creak of old floorboards, like the place itself was eavesdropping. So, Lena said, settling beside me on the couch again, one leg tucked under her, wine glass in hand. Want to play a game? I raised a brow. A game? A drinking game, she clarified, smirking. It's called the confession game. Ever played? Not since college, I said, eyeing her suspiciously. What's the catch? No catch. Just truth. No dodging. No judgment. You answer, you sip. Simple. I hesitated for a second, then raised my glass. All right, hit me. She leaned forward slightly, her voice playful but steady. Have you ever thought about cheating on Emily? I nearly choked on the sip I had just taken. Wow, right out the gate? I said, coughing. Her eyes sparkled with challenge. Truth only. I exhaled. No, I haven't. Not seriously. But casually, she pressed. I looked into my glass, watching the wine swirl slowly. I've noticed women, I admitted. It's hard not to when your own wife looks through you like you're a coat rack. But I never acted on it. I always thought it would fix itself. She nodded. Okay, my turn. I looked at her, suddenly more alert. Same question. Lena bit her bottom lip, her smile faltering slightly. Yeah, she said after a moment. I did. Once. He was this guy I worked with, a designer. He made me feel seen, beautiful, alive, but I never crossed the line. What stopped you? She looked at me, then said, simply, because if I did, I wouldn't be the person I wanted to be, even if he didn't deserve my loyalty anymore. I nodded. That's a hard place to be. She smiled faintly. Next question? Shoot. What was your first impression of me? I chuckled. That you were trouble. She laughed. Trouble? Why? I grinned. Because you used to walk around our house like you owned it. You'd steal the remote, eat the last piece of pie, tease Emily like a little sister. And you looked at me like you knew things you weren't supposed to. I was 19, she said, rolling her eyes. I was barely a person. You were confident, I corrected. And yeah, you had this look, like you were always 2 steps ahead of everyone else. She looked down at her wine, swirling it slowly. I had a crush on you, she said, almost too quietly to hear. I looked at her. What? I had a huge, embarrassing, please don't tell my sister level crush on you back then, she said, laughing into her glass. I used to hang around the kitchen just to watch you make coffee in the mornings. I laughed, stunned. Are you serious? Oh yeah, she said, nodding. You wore these stupid old band t-shirts and always had bedhead. I thought you were like a dad bod James Dean. I shook my head, grinning. Wow, that's unexpected. She looked at me again, her gaze more serious now. I used to lie in bed and imagine what it would feel like if you touched me. The air changed instantly. Something deeper settled between us, something thicker than flirtation, warmer than wine. I don't know what to say to that, I admitted. You don't have to say anything, she said. I just wanted you to know. I set my glass down. The room was too quiet. My pulse was suddenly too loud in my ears. I never thought about you like that before, I said slowly. But lately it's like you're the only one who even sees me anymore. She didn't answer, just reached out, slow and deliberate, and placed her hand on top of mine. We sat like that, fingers brushing, not quite holding, just feeling the charge. I don't want to mess up your life, she whispered. You're not, I said, barely breathing. It's already not what it used to be. She leaned in slightly. I could smell her shampoo, something lavender and warm. My eyes flicked to her lips, and hers flicked to mine. But she didn't move closer. Instead, she whispered, It's getting late. I nodded, though I didn't want the night to end. She stood slowly, pausing at the archway before turning back to me. "Thanks for playing," she said softly. "Good night, Jake." "Good night, Lena." And then she disappeared up the stairs, leaving me on the couch with a glass of unfinished wine, a racing heart, and the echo of a confession that felt like it changed everything. I couldn't sleep again. That was becoming the norm. It wasn't even the guilt, not yet. It was the noise in my chest, the kind that comes when something's about to break and you're just trying to hold still, hoping maybe the silence will keep the pieces from falling. Upstairs, Emily snored gently. It wasn't new. She had been a snorer for years, soft, rhythmic, like the ticking of a clock. But it never used to feel so loud, so final. I rolled out of bed and made my way downstairs, barefoot, wearing only a t-shirt and boxers. The house was cold, but I needed air. Space. I needed not to be in that bed alone beside someone who didn't even pretend to reach for me anymore. The back door creaked as I pushed it open. The night greeted me with a rush of cool air and that faint, damp smell of cut grass. The patio lights were off, but the moonlight painted everything with silver. I stepped outside, arms crossed, standing on the edge of the porch like I wasn't sure if I wanted to walk or run. And then I saw her. Lena. She was already there, curled up on one of the porch chairs, blanket wrapped around her legs, earbuds dangling loosely in her lap. Her head turned before I even spoke. "I couldn't sleep either," she said softly. I nodded and stepped toward her, hesitating only a moment before sitting beside her on the adjacent chair. We didn't speak for a while, just sat in the hush of midnight, side by side, listening to crickets and our own breath. Then she whispered, "Did it always feel like this with her? At the end?" "No," I said. "At the end it feels like pretending. But before? Before it was real. She wanted me. We were close. She'd fall asleep with her head on my chest. She'd wake me up just to tell me she had a weird dream." Lena nodded slowly, like she'd already known. "I think it's worse," I said, voice barely audible, "when you're still right there in the same room, but you feel like a ghost." She reached over and laid her hand on mine. Just that. Just the warmth of her palm against my knuckles. But it was enough to silence the entire world for a second. I didn't pull away. Neither did she. Her fingers curled slightly around mine. Not possessive, just there. Just real. I looked over at her. Her eyes were on our hands, but she glanced up when she felt me watching. "What is this?" I asked, throat dry. She gave a faint smile. "I don't know. We shouldn't," I said. "I know, but I don't want you to stop." Lena inhaled sharply but didn't move her hand. "I'm not trying to take her place, Jake," she said after a pause. "I'm not trying to mess anything up. I see you. And I know what it feels like to go to sleep every night wishing someone would just reach for you." My chest tightened. I looked away, because if I didn't, I might do something I couldn't take back. "I think I forgot what it feels like," I said. "To be wanted." Lena leaned her head against the back of the chair, eyes on the stars. "You shouldn't have to forget." The silence was charged again, but not dangerous. It was full of a kind of warmth I hadn't felt in too long. Then her thumb moved. Just a small stroke across my skin. Slow. Intentional. And it was like lightning. I flinched, not from fear, but from the intensity of it. Like my body wasn't sure whether to run or pull her closer. Every nerve stood at attention. We didn't kiss. We didn't even move closer. But that single, lingering touch, it said everything. I should go back inside, I murmured, though I made no move to stand. "Yeah," she whispered. "Me too." Neither of us moved. Her hand slipped away, gently, fingertips dragging across my palm before letting go. She stood first, turned back toward the door. But before she went in, she paused and looked back over her shoulder. "Good night, Jake." "Good night, Lena." When she disappeared inside, I stayed there on the porch another 10 minutes, hand still tingling where she'd touched it, trying to convince myself that the air between us hadn't just changed forever. But it had. The day after the touch was painfully ordinary. Emily was in her usual routine. Makeup at the kitchen island, black coffee untouched on the counter, replying to emails like her phone had more intimacy than I ever did. She didn't notice how long I stared at her, hoping maybe something would click inside her and she'd finally ask, "Are you okay?" But it didn't happen. Instead, she gave a passing, "You forgot to take the trash out again," and disappeared into the garage with her heels clacking behind her like punctuation. Lena wasn't in the kitchen that morning. Her door was closed. No coffee cups, no trail of her soft humming. It was like she'd pulled her presence back deliberately, and I hated how much I noticed the absence of her energy. By mid-afternoon, I was fuming quietly in my office, emails blurred on the screen, focus shot. I wasn't angry at Lena. I wasn't even angry at Emily, not really. I was angry at this life, this slow erosion of something that once meant everything. I used to dream with Emily. Now I avoided dinner. That night, I came home to find her already curled up on the couch, phone glowing against her cheek, TV humming with some reality show I didn't recognize. She didn't look up, not even when I dropped my keys harder than usual on the entry table. "You working late again tomorrow?" I asked, tone sharper than I meant. She blinked, still watching her show. "What?" I said. "Are you working late again tomorrow?" I repeated, jaw clenched. "Probably." "Why?" I stepped into the room and stood between her and the TV. That got her attention. She lowered her phone slowly. "Jake, what the hell?" "I don't remember the last time you touched me," I said flatly. She stared at me, surprised. "Where is this coming from?" "From months of you pretending I don't exist," I snapped. "From hearing 'not tonight' so many times I started to feel like a stranger in my own home." Emily sat up straighter, phone now forgotten on the coffee table. "You're being dramatic." "No, Emily. I'm being honest." She scoffed. "Oh, please. You want me to fake wanting sex just so you don't feel insecure?" "This isn't just about sex," I growled. "It's about never being seen. You don't touch me. You don't talk to me unless I ask something. You barely even look at me. We live in the same house, and I feel more alone than I ever have." She folded her arms. "I've been stressed. I'm exhausted, Jake. Work is insane. You know that. And I've been understanding," I shot back. "I've given you space. I haven't pushed. But you know what? At some point, space just becomes neglect." Her expression changed, just slightly. "Is this about Lena?" My breath caught. "What?" "I see the way you look at her," she said, voice cold. "The way you suddenly have conversations again. The way you actually smile when she's in the room." I stepped back like I'd been slapped. "You think I'm what? Falling for your sister?" "Aren't you?" she challenged. "God, Jake. It's pathetic. She's just bored. She's always been needy." I felt something twist in my gut. "Don't talk about her like that," I said, voice dangerously low. "Oh, so now you defend her?" Emily laughed bitterly. "You couldn't get attention from your wife, so you started soaking it up from the next closest woman. Maybe I wouldn't have needed it if you hadn't checked out of this marriage 2 years ago." She flinched, and for the first time in months, her face cracked. "I didn't check out," she whispered. "I just stopped knowing what to say, and then it felt easier not to say anything at all." We stood there, words hanging between us like shrapnel. Neither of us moved. Then, without a word, Emily stood up and walked past me. She climbed the stairs and closed the bedroom door softly behind her. And I stayed downstairs. I didn't even try to follow. Instead, I grabbed a blanket from the hall closet and lay down on the couch. I stared at the ceiling fan, willing myself not to think about Lena. But then, quiet footsteps on the stairs. Not Emily. Lena. Barefoot, soft, deliberate. She appeared at the edge of the room, her eyes finding mine immediately. We didn't speak. She crossed the floor slowly and knelt beside the couch. I sat up just slightly, the blanket slipping from my chest. She reached for me. No kiss. No words. Just her arms around me, and her head against my shoulder. Her hair smelled like lavender and sleep. Her fingertips grazed my ribs where my shirt had ridden up. I didn't move. I just closed my eyes and let myself feel wanted. And she didn't go back upstairs. Not that night. The moment Lena's body curled into mine, the weight of every lonely night collapsed. There was no thunderclap, no wild explosion of limbs and lust. Just heat, breath, her fingers tracing the edge of my jaw like I was something sacred. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. I kissed her first, tentative, trembling, testing the line we both knew we'd already crossed. Her lips parted without hesitation, warm and inviting. A kiss that answered questions I didn't know how to ask. I pulled her closer. She climbed over me slowly, straddling my lap like it had always been her place. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't revenge. It was relief. Clothes peeled away one piece at a time, not ripped or tossed, but handled with care, like we both knew this wasn't just about the act. It was about acknowledgement. About two people who'd spent too long pretending they didn't ache to be seen. The first time I touched her bare skin, she gasped, quiet but real. Her hips moved toward me instinctively, her hands resting on my shoulders as if anchoring herself. She didn't look away, and I didn't either. Lena wasn't perfect. She had a tiny scar on her left hip, a faint freckle on her right breast. Her thighs were soft, her breath uneven. And in all of it, she was more real than anything I'd touched in years. When I finally entered her, it was slow, intentional. Her body met mine without resistance, like it had been waiting. Her eyes fluttered closed, her mouth falling open in a quiet gasp that sent a ripple through my entire being. We moved together, not rushed, not desperate. Just there. The couch creaked beneath us. The night air cooled the sweat on our skin. Her moans were soft, breathy, but edged with need, like she was giving me something no one else had ever earned. Like she was trying to fill every space inside me that had been left hollow. And when she came, she clutched my back and whispered my name. Not loud, not breathless, but reverent. Jake. Like it meant something. Like I meant something. We collapsed together, limbs tangled, hearts racing, the room quiet except for our shallow breaths. I held her, her head resting on my chest, and for once, I didn't feel like I was being punished for wanting affection. I didn't feel like a burden. I just existed. After a while, she spoke. You deserved to feel this a long time ago. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My throat was tight, and I didn't want to ruin it with the wrong words. She traced a slow, lazy circle on my chest. I shouldn't have done that, but I don't regret it. My heart stuttered. Yeah, same. She pulled the blanket over us, and I didn't move. Neither of us could sleep, but we lay there in silence anyway, soaked in something that felt like warmth and guilt all at once. At some point, maybe an hour later, she whispered, "She's going to know." "I know," I replied. She sighed into my shoulder. "I don't want to be the reason your life explodes." "My life's already ash," I said, staring at the ceiling. "You're just the first thing that didn't feel like smoke." Lena curled tighter into me, her legs sliding between mine. "That's not nothing," she said. "It's not," I agreed. The guilt came slow, like a shadow creeping across the wall. I didn't try to deny it. I had just betrayed my wife, even if she'd already abandoned me emotionally. I'd stepped into something that would change everything. But I couldn't find regret. Not for the way Lena touched me, not for the way she whispered my name like it meant something again. And yet, in the early morning, when Lena had finally drifted into a light sleep on my chest, I stared out the window at the paling sky and realized that no matter what excuses I made, no matter how dead the marriage felt, this was going to be the moment that rewrote everything. When the sun cracked the horizon, it didn't feel like a new beginning. It felt like a warning. And still, I didn't move. I didn't want to. Lena stirred slightly and looked up at me, her eyes soft and swollen with sleep. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded. "I think so." She pressed her lips to my chest, right over my heart. "We'll figure it out. Whatever comes next." But even as she said it, we both knew. Whatever came next would hurt. We stayed wrapped in that fragile, borrowed peace for another hour, until footsteps creaked overhead. "Emily." We froze. Not from fear, but because we both knew the clock had started ticking. The moment I heard Emily's footsteps above us, everything in my body went cold. Lena was still lying against my chest, but her body had tensed. We didn't move. We just listened, breath held, hearts loud, as Emily crossed the hallway. Then came the soft click of the bathroom door. Water running. A toilet flush. A cabinet opened. Mundane, domestic sounds that now felt like warning shots. Lena slowly sat up, pulling the blanket around her as she stood. Her bare skin flashed in the soft morning light, beautiful and terrifying. She looked back at me with a mixture of tenderness and panic. "I should go," she whispered. I nodded, throat dry. She grabbed her hoodie and tiptoed up the stairs, her exit ghost-like, silent except for the tiny creak on the fourth step. Always the fourth. I used to love that imperfection. Now it made my stomach knot. I sat on the couch, naked under the blanket, cold sweat breaking across my chest. The living room still smelled like her, lavender, warmth, and something electric. I ran a hand over my face. Guilt was already sinking in, rooting itself in my gut. The sound of the shower started. Emily's usual morning ritual. 10 minutes, exactly. Then lotion. Then perfume. Then her walking out the door without so much as a look in my direction. But that morning, everything felt different. When she came downstairs, dressed in navy slacks and a light blouse, her hair damp and pulled into a twist. I was at the kitchen counter nursing black coffee like it could absolve me. "You're up early," she said, reaching for a banana. "Yeah," I replied. "Didn't sleep much." She didn't look at me. For a moment, I wondered if she knew. If some part of her had sensed the shift. Women have that intuition, especially when it comes to emotional undercurrents. And ours had just changed. Before she could leave, I spoke again. "Emily," I said, "can we talk tonight? Really talk?" She paused at the doorway, keys in hand. "About what?" "About us." She hesitated, then gave a slight nod. "Fine. Tonight." And just like that, she was gone. By late afternoon, Lena hadn't emerged from her room. I texted her, "You okay?" Her reply came a few minutes later. "Yeah, just needed space." We knew this would happen. I wanted to respond with something meaningful, something that would anchor her to me in the chaos. But all I wrote was, "I miss you." She didn't reply. That evening, the house felt charged, like static before a storm. Emily came home later than usual. She looked exhausted, but not from work. From avoidance. From knowing things were about to be unearthed that neither of us could bury again. We sat in the living room, not quite facing each other. "So," she started, "let's talk." I cleared my throat. "Emily, when did you stop loving me?" She blinked. "Wow, that's how we're starting?" "I'm not trying to fight," I said. "I just need the truth." She was quiet for a while. Then she sighed. "I don't know. Maybe it was gradual. Maybe I stopped noticing when you stopped laughing. Maybe I stopped trying when you stopped asking." "I never stopped asking," I said softly. "You just stopped hearing me." She looked away, jaw clenched. "I used to reach for you in bed," I continued. "And you'd flinch. Like my touch disgusted you." "I didn't mean to," she said quickly. I felt so far away. And I didn't know how to come back." "So you didn't try," I said. "You gave up." "And you didn't," she snapped. "Don't act like you're blameless. You shut down too. You retreated into silence. Into work. Into pretending everything was fine." We sat there, both breathing heavily. The air between us thick with the weight of everything unspoken. Then she looked at me, her eyes suddenly sharper. "Is there someone else?" she asked. The question didn't shock me. What did was the way she asked it. Not with suspicion, but with resignation. Like she already knew. I hesitated. "Jake." "I didn't plan for it," I said. Her face didn't change. "I knew it," she whispered. "You checked out of this marriage 2 years ago," I said. "I've been sleeping next to someone who looks at me like I'm a roommate. Do you know what that does to a person?" "Who is it?" she asked. "Is it someone I know?" I opened my mouth. Closed it. Her eyes narrowed. "Oh my God," she breathed. "It's Lena." I didn't answer. Tears welled in her eyes. Not of heartbreak, but of humiliation. "I should have known," she whispered. "The way she looked at you. How close you two suddenly got. God, I'm such an idiot." "You're not," I said quickly. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. "Yes." She stood suddenly, pacing the room like the walls were closing in. "I don't even know if I'm angry," she said. "Is that weird? I should be. But I'm just empty." I stood too. "Because we've been done for a long time. We just didn't want to say it out loud." She stopped. "And now that we've said it?" I met her gaze. "We figure out what comes next." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I want a separation." I nodded. "Okay." We stood there, no longer enemies, but no longer anything else either. And somewhere upstairs, Lena was quiet. Waiting for the fallout neither of us could stop now. The first thing I noticed after Emily left was how quiet the house became. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just quiet. No heels against the hardwood. No late-night conference calls echoing down the hall. No familiar scent of her citrus perfume lingering in the bathroom. It was as if she had evaporated, taking with her everything that had once made this place a shared life. She didn't slam doors or scream on her way out. That wasn't her style. Instead, she packed 3 bags neatly while I waited downstairs with a knot in my throat and an ache in my chest I didn't know how to name. When she finally descended the stairs, dragging a rolling suitcase behind her, we both paused in the entryway. Her eyes met mine, red-rimmed but dry. All the emotion had burned itself out the night before. "I'll be staying with a friend," she said. "For now." I nodded. "Okay." She lingered for a second longer, then said, "I don't hate you." "I don't hate you either," I replied. And then she was gone. Just like that. A marriage folded into silence. Lena stayed in her room the entire day. I didn't blame her. When she finally emerged that evening, her face was pale, eyes unsure. She stood at the edge of the kitchen, hands clasped together like she was bracing for impact. "Is she gone?" she asked. I nodded. "She left this morning." Lena exhaled slowly, like the weight of that truth was too big to hold in one breath. "She knows it was me," she whispered. "I didn't say your name," I told her. But she knew. She figured it out. "She always hated when I got close to people she loved," Lena said, voice bitter. "Even as kids." "This isn't your fault," I said gently. She looked up at me, eyes tired. "Isn't it, though?" "No," I said. "It's not." She stepped farther into the room and sank into one of the kitchen chairs. "So, what now?" "I don't know," I said. "I honestly don't." We sat in silence for a while. Not the kind filled with tension, but one that carried the weight of choices made, lines crossed, hearts exposed. "I should go stay with a friend too," she said. "Give you space. Let things settle." I didn't want her to. The thought of waking up in this house completely alone made something in my chest tighten. But I didn't stop her, because maybe she needed that space too. "I'll be here if you want to talk," I said. She nodded. "I know." She stood and walked to me. We didn't kiss. We didn't even hold each other. She just placed her hand on my chest for a moment, her fingers curling slightly into the fabric of my shirt, her eyes searching mine. "You're a good man, Jake," she said. "You just forgot how to believe it." And then she was gone too. The days after felt like a strange sort of limbo. I worked, ate, slept, breathed. I moved through the house like a shadow, touching objects like they might disappear. Her coffee mug was still in the cabinet. Her robe still hung on the back of the bathroom door. A faint indentation on the couch cushion where Lena had curled into me, etched like a bruise on memory. Friends started texting. A few coworkers noticed something different in my face. "You okay, man?" they'd ask. "Yeah," I'd lie. "Just tired." I wasn't sad. Not exactly. More like disoriented. Like I'd walked out of a fog and suddenly found myself in a field with no map, no signposts, and 100 possible paths. What startled me the most was the relief. Underneath the guilt and confusion was this quiet, shameful sense of freedom. Not joy, not triumph, just space. The ability to exhale without watching my breath bounce off the back of someone who didn't care. I missed Emily, but I missed who she used to be, and I didn't want to go back to pretending. 3 days later, Lena texted me. "Hey, you okay?" "Yeah. You?" "Not really. Want to talk?" She came by that evening. We didn't touch. We didn't kiss. We sat in the living room, inches apart, like we were waiting to see if something still lived in the space between us. "I keep wondering if I ruined your life," she said. "You didn't," I said. "You just brought things to the surface." "I wish it had happened differently." "Me too," I admitted. "But it didn't." She stared at her hands. "Do you regret it?" "No," I said honestly. "But I hate how much it hurt her." Lena nodded. "She'll never forgive me." "Probably not." She blinked fast, fighting tears. "I don't think I can stay. Not here. Not right now." "Then go," I said gently. "But know that what happened between us, it wasn't just a mistake. It meant something." She looked at me, eyes wide. It did. She left again that night. But this time, it didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like a pause, a space between breaths. And in that space, I finally began to feel something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. It took 24 days. That's how long it was before I saw Lena again. Not in passing, not in a text thread, not through the filter of memory or doubt. 24 days of empty coffee mugs, cold sheets, and evenings spent staring at the ceiling wondering what counted as love and what counted as survival. Emily didn't reach out. Not once. We'd started the paperwork through lawyers. There was no drama, no courtroom, just names on paper, signatures that sliced through years of history with quiet finality. She moved in with a friend near the coast. Her things slowly disappeared from the house, like dust shaken from old drapes. At first, I thought I'd feel hollow, but I didn't. I felt clean. Still bruised, yes, but honest. On the 25th day, I got a text from Lena. "Are you around?" I stared at it for a long time, then replied, "Always." She asked to meet at the Overlook, the same one where we'd parked weeks ago, where her hand had first touched mine and changed the temperature of the air between us forever. I drove out just before dusk. The sky had that soft golden glow that feels like a secret, like the world is whispering something before going to sleep. She was already there when I arrived, leaning against the railing, the wind teasing strands of hair across her face. She turned when she heard the gravel crunch beneath my tires. She smiled. Small, careful, but real. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said. I wasn't sure you'd ask, I replied. We stood side by side for a while, looking out over the lake. The water was still, glassy, as if it too were holding its breath. I've been staying with a friend, she said, trying to figure out where I belong. And? I asked. I realized I don't want to belong to someone, she said. I want to choose where I stand. Who I stand with. I looked at her. The light caught her eyes in just the right way. She looked tired, beautiful, unapologetically human. I'm not asking for promises, I said. I just want honesty. You already had that, she said, stepping closer. Every hard, complicated, stupid part of me. I never hid any of it from you. No, I said. You never did. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Handwritten. Folded twice. She handed it to me. What's this? I asked. A letter I wrote, she said. After that night on the couch. I never sent it. I opened it. My name was at the top in her looping handwriting. The first line read, You didn't just make me feel seen. You made me feel chosen. I folded it back up before I read more. It was too much to take in all at once. I've been afraid, she said. Afraid that this, whatever it is, was born from wreckage. That we were just filling holes left by someone else. We weren't, I said. You didn't fill a hole. You opened a door. She stepped even closer now. We were inches apart, the wind tugging at her coat. She looked up at me, eyes steady. I've thought about the words people say when they're in love, she said. I love you. I need you. Don't leave. Stay with me. I waited. I've said those words before, she continued. To men who didn't deserve them. To people who made me feel small. But this time, she whispered, I want to say something else. She reached out, took my hand, just like that night in the car. Only now it wasn't trembling. I choose you, she said. 3 new words. No pleading. No desperation. Just clarity. I felt something catch in my throat. My hand tightened in hers. I choose you too, I said. And then I kissed her. It wasn't hungry. It wasn't frantic. It was slow, deliberate, like we were letting our hearts catch up to something our bodies already knew. When we pulled apart, the sun had dipped just below the trees. The sky was lavender and gold. Everything smelled like pine and earth and endings that felt like beginnings. We stood there for a while, holding each other, saying nothing. Later, when we drove back to the house, our house now, though it would take time to feel like it, I saw her reach for the radio. She played something soft, something old and comforting. She sang along under her breath. And I realized something. The 3 words that had changed my life weren't, I love you. Not this time. They were. Not tonight. That was the beginning of the end. But these 3, I choose you, were the beginning of everything else.